It's Monday morning and we're back at it again. So I need to put, right now we're on the, as you can tell, driver's side. Roll hoop, diagonal, kicker. So what I want to do is we got to start closing this in with sheet metal. And what I'm thinking is we're going to put the ECU will go over there. Here we'll put the box that just have a cover that you can lift up, but that'll contain all of the relays, the fuse box, the strip, the main fuse, all that'll go in here, and then we'll draw a cover from this surface back to enclose it. It'll be easier for the driver to get to, and again, the harness bar will be up in here. So as you can tell, we have plenty of room to get in here and do what we need to do, but right now it's all cleccoed in place, so if we don't like it, we can change it. But I'll keep going on this and we'll show you where we're going. Got the top panel on. It wraps around the side and attaches to the kicker. And then against the inner wall there I've got a angle bracket on the bottom, just out of sheet metal. So everything's cleccoed in place right now. So now I'm going to kind of play around with the layout of what I want to do with the fuse box, a couple other components. So we'll start mocking that up and show you when I'm happy with something. So this is the start of my concept for the fuses and the control boxes and the relays and that. But I think I don't have enough space, so I'm thinking about doing some more work over here and moving some of the main fuse in the hot all the time junction box, probably all the fuses, over into this area here. There's going to be some open space there, and I just think it'll give me more room and make this a little bit more organized over here once we start putting all the wires in. So we moved over to the passenger side this afternoon, and I got my panel built for the front, panel built for the side, and you can see the battery box is sitting in there, and it's easy to come in and out. And then the last thing I did, first time I've ever built, in a sense, a pan. I don't have to worry about it leaking or anything, but it's not gonna. Before that, I can hinge the pan on the box side, and that'll be the battery cover. And hopefully, if all goes right, it's gonna be about the same height as this here, this kicker in the back. So it'll just, this will tip up or lift off. Haven't figured out exactly how I'll do that yet, but yeah. So I'll do a little bit on the back, got a little bit on the side here to do. Kind of close this off, and then I'll make a back panel when I do the wheel wells. So this is the rear part of that battery box. You can see I don't have it filled in here in the back yet, but I think when we do the wheel well, that'll enclose this all. I'm thinking about making a bottom that comes up, sits on the supports, and that's why I put a nice flange over here to have something to drill in, clamp, and finish that off. But got a good day's work in. Got two, well, better, or a box and a half done, so quite happy with that. But we'll come back tomorrow morning and keep plugging along. So what we're working on today is the drive shaft tunnel. So I've taken the hoop out in the back just to make it a little easier, because I think what I'm going to do is mate the sheet metal up against this surface here and then run it on the inside of the hoop, because there's not a lot of room in here between the seats. So let's see if I can figure out how to do this. So here's Here's my mock-up for the drive shaft tunnel. So you can see I've got it roughly fitted. Needs a lot more work, but it's roughly fitted inside the loop there. Got some 3/4 inch edge on one side, and I just left it long at the other as I move things around, but I've got it fitting pretty close in here. Just a little bit more tweaking to do. But I think what I'll do next is put this in, and put the seat in, and make sure we have clearance before I get too excited and start doing a lot more work on it and find out it doesn't fit. So we're doing another fitting. Get it all trimmed up there on the front pretty close. Got approximately where it's going to sit. Do the tube inside, and I'm just doing my first fitting for the seat. So we have plenty of room at the back. The leg bolster is touching just a touch. I am not concerned about that at all. So I think what I'll do is keep fitting this up, get a little closer, and then we'll do some clicos to hold it in place, and then we can check both seats. We just made a prototype. Actually, it's going to be the final panel for the back panel that goes between the battery box and the box over there for the electrical. So I made it the same height, and it's got a flange, so we can bolt through, actually weld through these. Got a flange here at the bottom, about 3/4 inch in, so we can spot weld through here. We've got it cut out for the drive shaft tunnel on this surface and up against the back wall. And then we'll look what we're going to do for the components we're going to put above there. Also got to make some clearance in that for the wires to come through, because I think we're going to run them down the top of the tunnel. For the engine controls, we'll put the ECU probably back over in there. But I'll pick that plate up tomorrow and we'll keep moving forward. So I went shopping yesterday. Got a bunch of pieces parts for a couple projects. Picked up 3 of these. These are from the S10. It's got the same ECU as the 5.3s, 4.8s. It's all just a General Motors ECU. But I like these because they've got a mounting system. So you can slide the ECU in, and then it's got this big metal clamp and 2 little clips here that hold it in place. So, how do we mount it to the frame? This handy dandy little mount I just designed up. Only took about 45 minutes. So that can weld to the, I'm going to say kickers right now, until I found out for sure. We're going to this the right way. And it sits right on there. So we'll get some bolts in the holes and we'll see where we're going to put it. I got the ECU mounted, so I just cleaned up the area on the frame rails and played around some different spots and thought, you know what, I think that's going to work best because I can get all 3 bolts in and I still have airflow, so they want a little airflow around it. So that's kind of what the pockets in the back were for, and you can see the lower aluminum part here is hanging out in the breeze, but it just needs a little bit of airflow to keep it cool. So now I'm going to try to build some sheet metal around it to close across over here, and this is where I can put relays and my junction box and my fuses and all that, and it'll just make it a lot cleaner and smoother. So we'll play with some stuff and see what it looks like. So I'm sitting here working on my next step, putting the shelf back here, and I realized I didn't find where the drive shaft tunnel comes out. So I went ahead and put a piece in here. So this will try the drive shaft tunnel to the back wall. So that's just clickoed in place, along with the drive shaft tunnel. And now I can see what height this is on the back side. and where I can build a shelf back here to run all the wires and stuff through. So I think what we'll do is probably put holes back here to run the wires through, and then we can always close this with something when we make the final tunnel. We'll put a door or something in there to have some storage space in here between the seats, but that's where we're at now. I think that ought to work. So we made this panel here. It's got an angle so we can tie it into the front panel here. And of course, it's sitting on the kicker, so we can drill that in and drill some holes in the sheet metal and plug weld that to the main kicker rails. And then what I did is from the battery run to the first fuse, which will be the main fuse for the engine, to a hot all the time block, and another fuse in, say, the fuel pump, and another fuse and another relay for when you turn the key on. That powers up the fuse box, and the last fuse will be used for the power for the relay that goes in the front for the electric fan. And then what I'll probably do is next to each relay mount a second relay, so if one blows you just unplug it, plug it into the other relay, and off you go down the road. So, and then we've got plenty of space down in here to run our wires and stuff to our ECU, which right now is buried between that relay and the final fuse. So we'll do a little rearranging, but I got plenty of room. So that's probably what we'll go with. When I come up with some better ideas or make some more progress, I'll bring you along. So I was thinking of a way, since this down here is going to be open to the environment and underneath the car and heat and everything else, I needed a way to seal where the connector is so we can keep the exhaust gases and dirt and everything out of the passenger compartment. So I made this plate that slides on there, so that'll seal off most of it. And then I made a box, open-ended box, that I'm going to weld to this, and that will allow clearance for the ECU connectors and bring it up flush with the surface where the plate goes down here with all the relays and the fuses. So let's see how this works. So here's the little box that I cut out, sitting on the plate. Still have a little trimming to do over here, but this will bring it up enough that I can mark where that plate goes, and then I can cut this hole out and weld it from the back side or from the top side, and hopefully we'll seal that out. So let's see if I can put these two together. Well, I got the little tray all finished for now for the ECU, so that there is all in place, as you can see. So now I have to put the back panel on and cut it down and get everything welded together. But while that was cooling, I had taken the drive shaft tunnel and sprayed all the surfaces here on the frame and on the bottom of the drive shaft tunnel. So I painted the inside of the tunnel with just a etching primer, and those two mating surfaces were welding with weld-through primer, and just punched some holes in there so I could do some plug welding. So I left these open so that I can move it around a little bit, because nothing back there is fixed. I'm still fitting that stuff, but pretty happy with that so far. I'll just leave this up here to finish weld when I get everything else done. But let's put the back panels in and get that started. Well, there we have it. I've got it all welded together and ground down. I think I might have to go in here, grind this a little bit in here because it's a little tight. But besides that, very, very happy with the outcome. So we will continue moving forward and start getting this panel ready to put in permanent. And before we do that, we'll get everything finalized for our relays and fuses. We're back at it again. So I got all but the relay panel tacked in place and welded in place. So I went through and cleaned everything up, checked all my alignment, did all my priming, and tacked it together. That's not pretty, but we'll clean that up. But everything is all in place. All the braces are in place. Everything's nice and solid. So what I'm working on now is getting ready to do the floor pans, but I need something to run the brake line and fuel line from the engine compartment. So that'll be on this side of the tube through that little block, or that hole that I put in, and then back to, we'll probably go through the rail there at the kicker. Go through this rail, it'll all be protected. So I made up this little C, and we'll weld it underneath, and that should take care of all of our needs. I'll show you what it looks like underneath. So you can see underneath the car. That's it. This is the trans mount on the driver's side, and that is the little piece of 1.5 inch by 1.5 inch put in there. And this is just going along. Oops. Terrible camera. Back to the kicker area. So we'll drill a couple holes in the tube that goes across the car, the 3x4, and pass the brake line and the fuel line through there, and whatever else we need, and all should be good. So that channel is about 3/4 of an inch, so that should be plenty. And then we got plenty of room to attach it to that channel. This morning we're working on the floor pan on the driver's side. So we plan on putting in a removable transmission tunnel. In order to do that, we gotta have something to be able to attach it to. So hopefully you can see. I took a piece of 20 gauge, about 4.5 inches wide, about 30 inches long, and put a 1-inch bend on it. And then I went in and just roughly did some shrinking and stretching to make it match that profile. So what I've done now is see how I wanted it to clear in the front. Get under the pedal here. Make sure I can clear the ribs and stuff when we pull the transmission out, so it'll go straight down, and also be able to pull the bolt out for the transmission. Cross member. So what I did was went and scrapped it underneath so I can take some of the material off that I don't need, and I'm going to get rid of that and then get it a little bit closer with some shrinking and stretching to get it to match more the body line of the basically floor pan kick panel. So I guess that up there will be with the kind of the floor pan firewall area. So we'll get some of that done and bring you back. So we got everything all ready for the driver's side. Everything primed and cleaned over there. The same thing on this side. Got this all primed and it fits quite nice. So this will be a butt weld because there's so much material removed. So I'm not too worried about that. So while this is drying, I thought let's get started on the passenger side. So you know how the second side always goes quicker. So I cleaned everything up first this time, including where I'm going to prime. And then I made myself this. This is just the first prototype. Just kind of sits in there. We'll do some more getting it closer, but I just kind of rough it in first, so it's probably a little too much bend here, so we can just stretch that back out. but from here to here, kind of using this part of the frame is where that's going to sit. So might need a little bit more shrinking and stretching. But I think I'm to the point now where figuring out where it's going to line up, and then we'll go ahead and make these cutouts. I'll either hammer those in, but there's some protrusions, round protrusions, that I'll see if I can take out. If not, I'll have to cut around them and fit them into that so that we can get it to sit down a little bit closer. But literally that's about 15 minutes worth of work, from measuring it up, cutting the steel out, bending it, and shrinking and stretching it. So I'm getting better. Well, I'm pretty happy with that. Get my bolt out from underneath. A good gap around everything, all the way up to the true firewall. And we can get all our bolts out for the transmission. But I think it's a lot easier to just drop this out like a subframe on a, because it has a subframe. On a modern car, so you just drop transmission and engine out from the bottom. But we're going to still keep the removable transmission tunnel for ease of service. But there we go. So we'll get some holes drilled in this and get it primed and ready to weld in tomorrow with the other stuff we've been making. This is what I've been working on the last little bit. So I wanted a flange. See, there's a transmission, to mount the transmission tunnel to, so we can take it off. So we started with this piece, which we'll weld into the floor pan, and it goes up into like a 90-degree bend, and then it comes in and out. My camera's in the way of my light. Goes in and out all the way around to the passenger side. So I think what I'm going to do now is put some holes in these. There's about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different pieces. So I'll get all the holes punched in them and the area ground on the firewall and tack these in place, and then we can start looking at how to do the firewall itself, or the transmission tunnel itself. So we'll get that. I took the engine and transmission out just to make it easier to do some welding here. So I've got the whole passenger side welded up across the top, and I just finished up scribing and getting the passenger side all done. This is what we've got on the driver's, or the engine compartment side. So now all this is open. So now what I'm thinking about doing is coming in here and filling in this area here. Get all this done, cleaned up, everything except a little spot around the steering shaft where that comes through the firewall. But otherwise, I'm really happy with it, and it's really strong. So we'll get this part finished up and primed up, and then we won't have to worry about it anymore. Then we can move on to the transmission tunnel itself. So here's the passenger side. Went ahead and scribed it like I did the driver's side, and got it fitting up really nice. So just a little bit of grinding, and it'll look almost like factory. But we'll get some panels in on the other side, and that should fill up a lot of the gaps up here.